I was browsing one of my favorite subreddits yesterday, the Maw installation, when I came across an interesting post. How would Sidious's plans have changed had Vader not been injured on Mustafar? Certainly a thought-provoking question, but more generally, I started thinking about how the galaxy would have changed had Anakin won his duel against Obi-Wan. Now, certainly this idea has been covered before on YouTube, perhaps over-covered, but I'm going to take less of a fan fiction approach to the question and more an analysis that fits within the existing Star Wars Legends lore. So let's keep this scenario simple. Near the end of their duel on Mustafar, Obi-Wan loses the will to kill Anakin and allows himself to be struck down. Anakin, on the other hand, survives, uninjured. And there are several key aspects of the lore we need to examine in order to fully understand this scenario. What was the effect of Anakin's injuries on Anakin himself? What are Anakin's motivations? And how would the relationship between Anakin and Palpatine, and perhaps Anakin and Padme, change in this situation? Most importantly, how would things change from a galactic geopolitical point of view? So let's start first with an examination of Anakin's injuries. And the best resource for not only this question, but the entire scenario, is the Revenge of the Sith novelization by Matthew Stover. We get the following passage detailing the first time Anakin awoke as Vader in his new suit. This is what it feels like to be Anakin Skywalker. The light burns you, it will always burn you. Part of you will always lie upon black glass sand beside a lake of fire, while flames chew upon your flesh. You can hear yourself breathing. It comes hard and harsh, and it scrapes nerves already raw, but you cannot stop it. You can never stop it. You can't even slow it down. You don't have lungs anymore. Mechanisms hardwired into your chest breathe for you. They will pump oxygen into your bloodstream forever, and you rage and scream and reach through the Force to crush the Shadow who has destroyed you. But you are so far less now than what you were. You are more than half machine. You are like a painter gone blind, a composer gone deaf, and you can remember where the power was, but the power you can touch is only a memory. And so, with all your world-destroying fury, it is only the droids around you that implode, and equipment, and the table on which you were strapped shatters, and in the end, you cannot touch the Shadow. The Shadow is all you have left, because the Shadow understands you, it forgives you, it gathers you unto itself, and within your furnace heart, you burn in your own flame. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker, forever. The book tells us that Anakin Skywalker, once injured and in his suit, was a shadow of his former self. A broken man, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Vader is thus only able to wield a fraction of the power he once could. However, Anakin's loss to Obi-Wan also taught him something: to call onto the dark side in a measured sense, to only use its blinding rage, emotions, and anger sparingly while not letting it consume him, as he did against Obi-Wan. And Anakin, who wins at Mustafar, doesn't learn this lesson. If anything, he sees the successes of giving himself fully to the dark side, and begins to do so more often, becoming more powerful perhaps, but without the wisdom to harness the power correctly, like Sidious can. We'll come back to this. Right now I want to examine the power imbalance that existed between Sidious and Vader after the latter's serious injuries, and this was ultimately a defining aspect of their relationship. George Lucas has stated the following: Anakin ended up losing his legs and an arm and became partly a robot. So a lot of his ability to use the Force, a lot of his powers, are curbed at this point, because as a living form, there's not that much of him left. So his ability to be twice as good as the Emperor disappeared, and now he's maybe 20% less than him. Vader was forever a pawn and underling to Sidious, not only due to his difficulty harnessing the Force to his true potential, but also the life-saving electronics within his suit, which made him vulnerable to Sidious's Force lightning. This is why Vader sought out apprentices like Starkiller or Luke to help him destroy the Emperor. And destroying the Emperor was one of his main goals, not only because he sought power, but primarily because he wanted revenge. Everything Anakin did, his entire fall to the dark side, was because of his wish to save Padme from childbirth. He was manipulated by Palpatine with false promises of everlasting life. He made a pact with the devil and gave up everything that he held dear. And when Padme died, he realized that it was all for nothing. The full extent of Palpatine's deception is made very clear in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. For example, Anakin needed access to parts of the Jedi library only accessible to Masters. Palpatine engineers his placement on the Council, knowing that he will nonetheless be denied the rank of Master, in order to further sow discord between Anakin and the rest of the Council. At the heart of this is Anakin's possessive, obsessive love of Padme, a love that's mutual, but not equal. Anakin covets Padme, which is used by Palpatine. However, that also means once she's taken away from him, that obsession is replaced with pure anger. In the quote I read earlier, we know that Anakin's first move upon waking up was to try to reach out and destroy the shadow, which had taken everything away from him. This shadow does not represent broadly the dark side of the Force, rather, it's Palpatine himself. The table slowly rotated to vertical, and the shadow leaned close. Lord Vader, can you hear me? The official script for Revenge of the Sith also revealed that Palpatine was forced to protect himself from Vader's rage, and only through the Force was he not crushed by the nearby medical droids. In a scenario where Anakin wins his duel on Mustafar, but Padme still dies, I believe his first step will still be to confront Palpatine, although this time he will not be shackled by his lessened Force abilities, nor the literal table he's attached to. That brings us to the obvious question of whether Padme would have actually died in this scenario. In my opinion, probably. Anakin first attacks Padme in anger, and in a situation where he defeats Obi-Wan, he will only be further emboldened and blinded by his rage and the dark side of the Force. Let's be clear, even if she survives, there is no situation where Padme will join Anakin. She is too protective of democracy and the Republic, and she abhors fascism and the dark creature, which Anakin has turned to. But I don't think she will survive, because in my opinion, Padme's death is meant to coincide with the figurative death of Anakin Skywalker and the formation of Vader. She loses hope and the will to live. I think this is made pretty clear symbolically in the film itself, and if Anakin actually kills his brother Obi-Wan in anger, I think his transformation will be fully complete, and Padme and her children will be left to die on Mustafar. So now we have the confrontation between Anakin and Palpatine, one again that I think is inevitable upon Padme's death. Anakin, in a fit of rage, travels to confront Sidious, again unshackled by injury, but also blind with rage, as he was against both Dooku and Obi-Wan. Does he win this confrontation? An alternate scene for the Revenge of the Sith game tells us yes, but I don't think so. As the Chosen One, Anakin does have the highest potential of any character in Star Wars, but that's only when he's achieved balance, not as he's twisted by the dark side. Again, in his fights against Dooku and Obi-Wan, when giving into the dark side of the Force completely, Anakin suffers. This, however, is not the case for Sidious, who can harness the power and control it. Sidious is powerful because he is a master of the dark side and an embodiment of the dark side, while Anakin will always be manipulated by it. Anakin may be the greatest Jedi or Force user of all time, but Palpatine is the most powerful Sith, and we've heard that again and again within the lore. So if Anakin tries to fight him alone on his terms, he loses. Palpatine is the devil, and in any fight involving evil, Anakin will always be his underling. We also know that after his transformation to Vader, it was not only his physical injuries which held Anakin back, but as Palpatine recognized, also his mental and emotional scars. These will still be weighing him down during the final battle. But what if I'm wrong? Say Anakin is able to overpower the Sith Lord. He will obviously seek power himself, and Anakin has shown a desire to control people in both Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. However, Anakin is brash and does not possess the strategic mind, especially at his current age, to not only manage but oversee the founding of the Empire. I find it difficult to imagine that the infrastructure Palpatine created, from a clone army that responds only to his secret commands, to a close circle of manipulators and advisors, to the Senate itself, would follow this supposed killer of Palpatine. Not only a killer, but a Jedi. Remember, Palpatine had recently told the Senate of attempts against his life, and had long been poisoning public opinion against the Jedi. I don't see any realistic way that Anakin just assumes the mantle of Emperor with the rest of the galaxy following along. However, even if he did, the Empire would crumble under his leadership. We know that because the Empire was based on authoritarianism, and the galaxy was extremely large, too large to actually police conventionally with with a military, that law and order was based largely not only on the Tarkin doctrine and fear, but on Palpatine's dark side powers. We have the following quote from the Dark Empire sourcebook. Palpatine knew precisely why the Empire couldn't last without his power. He had designed it that way. No one ever suspected how much he relied on the dark side of the Force. He shaped those of his government by using the Force against them. He used it to control his fleets and to drive his soldiers on to victory, to destroy his enemies from a distance and learn of conspiracies against him. Without him, there was no way the Empire could endure as he had designed it. The dark side flowed through him like some primordial ichor and was the key to his power. What's more, from Biss to Coruscant and other planets across the galaxy, we also know that Palpatine used the dark side to pacify those who would stand up against him. Anakin, on the other hand, did not have the decades of study, the natural inclination, or the teacher like Higo Damask, which would provide him with the knowledge and skills necessary to use these Force techniques. Also, I don't believe he had the intelligence to run a galaxy-spanning empire. In my opinion, after the death of Palpatine, Anakin would be assassinated, and power ceased from his dead hands. But again, I think it's more likely that in the case of conflict between Emperor and Vader, Palpatine comes out ahead. That, however, is all just my opinion. What do you think? Did I get this more or less right? Am I way off base? Let me know all of that and more down in the comments. Also, I'd love to hear any scenarios you'd like to see me cover next. Until next time, guys, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.